Please hold. Regent Bloom, you are live.
Okay, thank you. Gaveling meeting to order. Welcome to the special ASA meeting. We are going to deal with issues of enrollment, retention, etc. I want to go through how this is going to work. There will be 7 presentations altogether, 6 campuses and the system office. Each presentation will have 5 minutes. 1 minute before the end of the 5 minutes, Ms. Davis will warn you with a yellow signal that you have 1 minute to go. And when the time is up, there will be a red signal for Ms. Davis. And I hope that everybody will respect those signals. If not, that's why I brought the gavel along. Following each presentation, there will be 8 minutes of questions from starting with the ASA committee members, if they have questions, followed by the board chair, followed by the 2, I'll call them visiting regents, Regent Santiago and Regent Yang, and followed by Professor Susanker, the ex officio member of the committee. If we have time, and I would ask each person to have 1 question to start. If we have time left within the 8-minute period, it'll be open for additional questions from the group I just mentioned. Okay, and we will do this with each of the presentations. At the end of the session, Chancellor Chang will have the opportunity to make whatever closing remarks or observations or whatever else he wishes to say at the end of the procedure. So that is the process that we're going to follow. So if you have a question following the presentation, please put up your hand either on the screen or on the system, so that I know who has a question. And as I say, the order I will go in will be ASA members first, Chair Ryan, the additional regents, and then continue if there's time left within that 8-minute block. Okay. So without further ado, I welcome everybody. The first presentation, we're going to take a tour around the state. The first presentation will be from Southern. So
I do want to just establish quorum as well and take attendance.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I missed the most important part. Ms. Davis, would you please take attendance? Call the roll.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Regent Bloom.
Present.
Regent James.
Present.
Regent McCarthy.
Present.
Regent Porth. Absence is noted. I'd also just like to recognize our regents that are with us today, Regent Chair Ryan, Regent Yang, Regent Santiago, and Professor Susanker. And I'd also like to recognize that we have leadership representatives from all of the campuses and the system office. And we have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Now we've done the official obligations. Thank you. So we will turn it over to Southern, President Smith and Provost Present. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to share Southern's plan for enrollment. Joining me is the President's leadership team. The presentation will consist of acknowledgement of last year's enrollment to give historical context. From there, I will share the enrollment goals for the academic year 2024, and Dr. Bob Present will share the approaches to achieve these goals, and we will end with questions and comments. Southern witnessed a 10% increase in first-year enrollment for fall 2023 compared to fall 2022. In addition, there was a significant increase in the transfer and readmitted students of 14%. New graduate enrollment increased by 22% from 2022. Full-time enrollment of our graduate programs is up by 6%, and overall graduate enrollment is up by 3.6%. Overall, full-time enrollment is up by 1.8%, and though our overall headcount is relatively flat due to a decline in part-time enrollment, our FTE, or full-time equivalent, is up by 1.4%, and credit hour production is up by 1.2%. We have the momentum in our favor as we continue to build on our undergraduate and graduate student enrollment. The 2024 enrollment goal is to increase overall enrollment at a minimum of 3.5 or 282 additional scholars. This enrollment growth will be achieved through the following: 1% growth in new student enrollment, or 73 scholars, a 0.7 growth in transfer and readmitted students, or 59% scholars, or 59 scholars, and a 0.8 retention increase of the 2023 cohort, or 65. And I'm going to turn it over now to our provost to give you more information.
Thank you, President Smith. Southern has done well bringing in transfer students. We're now looking to grow Connecticut State transfers by 25%. We'll do this in part by reinvigorating programs we've established with several of the community colleges to offer 300-level courses on their campuses, opening pipeline opportunities, and by creating new 2+2 opportunities for community college students with paths from the associate's to the baccalaureate degree. Recently, our 4 CSUs were awarded a $3.2 million NSF award to increase the number of underrepresented students in STEM, and we plan to recruit first-year and transfer students with opportunities through this and other grants. And part of that NSF award and many other Southern programs, along with our growing portfolio of corporate partnerships, will allow us to increase internship opportunities. Recruiting new first-year students is a priority. Expanding the NEBI rate to New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania will help. Southern spent much of last year exploring areas for disciplinary branding. To that end, we'll be launching the Leading the Way recruitment campaigns in health and wellness, sustainability and resilience, social justice, and autism studies. These will be marketed alongside focused promotions in the liberal arts, business, and education. We're also planning significant international program growth for select programs. Southern Early College program is expanding rapidly, now at about 640 students from over 70 high schools. And we plan to grow that number to 775 in 5 years. We'll also move our application yield from 18 to 20% through more high-touch admissions events, high school visits across the state, new marketing ventures, and growing scholarships, along with more experiential opportunities. Many of these approaches help sustain our students. Advising is now planning to launch professional advising specialists who will more deeply help transfer and first-year students, while our Explore Southern program ensures that our students make well-informed decisions in majors. More and larger grants, increased funds from our foundation will help students at all levels with financial support. We are confident our plans and support mechanisms will help Southern meet their enrollment goals. Thank you for your attention, and we're ready to entertain questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Regent McCarthy?
Good morning. Thank you. And I appreciate the numbers that were included in the presentation. That's helpful. My question is a summary question. Where do you expect to stand by the end of the current year or next year relative to pre-COVID enrollments? Will you have recovered pre-COVID enrollments by the end of this year or next year?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to ask our enrollment management VP to answer that question.
Yes, we will not yet be at pre-COVID enrollment levels by the end of this year. We were in the midst of a phenomenon of having 2 very large Gear Up cohorts who came through Southern. They entered in fall 2018 and 2019. And so we had much larger than usual first-year classes for those 2 years, and we've seen the impact of those cohorts being replaced by smaller ones as COVID kind of descended upon us. So we're still recovering from that, but our first-year classes are growing at a rate that we think that we will be there probably by next year.
Thank you.
Regent James?
Thank you. The retention growth is very aggressive to increase from, and difficult, challenging to do. I guess my question is, what is Plan B? Have you thought about cohort groups or other strategies if the specific ones, which are really quite positive and aggressive, fail to meet your expectations?
Thank you for that question, Regent James. Actually, this past year, we had a 2% increase of our retention of our cohort. And so we're at 75%. And this upcoming year, what I just shared, we're looking at 0.8%. So we are looking at managing our retention rates and looking at our first-year class. So our first-year class is most diverse in the history of Southern. We're 63% students of color, 57% of those are first generation, 54% are Pell eligible. So that means that presents opportunities for us to engage in this class, these scholars. And we plan to do this through mentorship, basically focusing on different types of programs that engage them. And I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna ask our VP of Student Affairs to respond even further.
We are really trying to dissect our initiatives to be more population specific. So we have launched new initiatives around men of color. We've launched new initiatives around our first generation students. We are looking at our academic support and interventions throughout the semester a little bit differently. We are getting better and better at being data informed to know what is having the impact and being able to expand those initiatives. So we are really intentionally moving in some different directions to understand uniquely what our students need and how we can invest our resources most strategically to support their continuation to their Southern degree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Ryan?
Yes, thank you. My question revolves around the communication of what you're doing. Are you using any creative method of communicating all the wonderful things about this fine institution? How are you going about reaching out to the community and well beyond?
So it's always been important to Southern that we maintain a lot of personal connection and engagement with, especially our top feeder high schools. But our team is visiting every single public high school in Connecticut. And we also are paying attention to our relationships with community organizations that support higher ed and access. And so I can ask my colleague, Vice President Ariza, who's working more closely with community engagement initiatives to say more about that.
Yes, thank you, Julie. We are focused on creating a strategic plan, a more intentional plan as to how do we immerse ourselves in thinking about how organizations look at how do they see our relationship with them. So high schools are one, but that's the obvious. But how do we think about reaching out to nonprofit organizations, churches, community agencies that work very specific with youth? And how do we develop that pathway for students not to just go through the high school counselor, but how educators, particularly in the nonprofits, work with us. So really being more intentional in how we do that outreach. And I want to say one more thing, and I know time is of the essence, but looking at our Spanish speaker families and parents I know some of us are doing that, but being very intentional in how we use our materials to engage with families. And we're doing some of that work already with parent orientation, but being intentional with the families, particularly Spanish speakers.
And good morning, and I'll just add quickly, I think while the Enrollment Management Office reaches out to individual students and goes in the field, our communications for broad-based discussions and outreach is highly based on social media. We spend a lot of time looking at the demographics of the students that we're trying to recruit in a broad-based way so that we're reaching out to the communities and the public, as well as what enrollment is doing, reaching out to individual prospective students.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to Regent Santiago.
Yes, thank you. My question is, what are the top
Can we see,
two?
can we see you? Do you mind?
I do. I apologize, Chair Bloom. I actually happen to be traveling,
Okay.
so I'm struggling. But my question is really, what are the top two initiatives that are must do, can't miss to be able to improve enrollment and retention next year?
Quite simply, we have a strategic plan that deals with enrollment. So it's for us. Enrollment, that means getting students to the campus. As Bob said, we want to increase our yield. Our yield is at 18%. We can move it to 20%. The second one is retention. We must recruit students, but we must retain them. So that's the initiative. The third one is to persist. That once students get past their sophomore year, what are the types of engagements that's necessary for them to move towards their final year and to graduate? So even though you asked for two, that's the bundle that we're looking at Southern. Enrollment, retention, persistence, and degree completion.
Thank you. I see a question from the central group, but I can't identify the people. It's around the table.
That's Regent Yang.
Regent Yang.
Hello. A bunch of these things I think are good blocking and tackling, which is great. Focus on the basics and do that. I would like to hear more regarding an item in here, your written report regarding career professional development and how that would feed into retention enrollment initiatives and specifically outreach to employers, I think is what you're getting at here. And also, I didn't quite catch what the answer was for the Plan B. So if you could just provide a little bit more detail about that. Again, these goals, listen, it's great to have great goals. I think it's good to be aggressive. I think you got to look high for people to perform high. Awesome. But what is the Plan B?
Okay, we're in our 1 minute zone, so can we have a fairly quick answer to not a simple question?
Sorry.
Well, I will start with the career and professional development. We, excuse me, are doing a great deal of work in thinking about how we establish new and expanded relationships with employers and working with students early on around career readiness using NACEs, the National Association of Careers and Employers competencies, really working from the day they walk onto campus, helping our students build the competencies that employers are looking for, and then connecting them early and often with employers, including our alumni and others, to give them experiences that help them discern their major and career paths, and then get connected and gain those experiences to take with them upon graduation. We have set goals around increasing our internship and other experiential learning participation of our students. We have many students who, as a part of their degree requirements, have student teaching or clinical or other type of experiential learning requirements, but we are looking to grow those opportunities and requirements across majors where they currently do not exist. So we have a lot of work going on. I'd be happy to talk in greater detail when we have a different opportunity to do so.
And we will have, if there are remaining questions, please forward any remaining questions to Provost Kathuria regarding the Southern presentation. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm not sure, we have to move on our tour of the state to the easternmost part of the empire, to Eastern. So we have, I see Dr. President Nunez, Provost Salka. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you. Thank you, Regent Bloom, and welcome to the Regents to this session. And of course, Chancellor, well, it's always good to see you as well. This morning, I want to tell a good story about Eastern. And as you know, we're Connecticut's only public liberal arts college, and we're primarily residential. That gives us a special identity and mission in the state of Connecticut. This morning, the provost and I want to focus on two major areas, our recruitment efforts and then our retention efforts. In terms of our academic programs, because Eastern has rested its reputation on the quality of our programs, we have a two-pronged approach. The first is that the APP process is the process that we are now using and have been using to strengthen our academic programs, existing programs. And the faculty has been doing that in earnest and with a lot of enthusiasm, and we're very proud of their work. The second is new initiatives, and I'm going to ask the provost to go over this morning the new initiatives that we have.
Good morning, regents and colleagues at the other institutions. We basically have a two-stream approach to our new enrollment initiatives going on. One is the creation of new academic programs, and the other is some modifications that we're making within the admissions office. So with regard to the admissions office, slide. We basically we're changing the CRM that we use in recruiting. We're moving from a very outdated folder wave to Slate, which will allow us to much more effectively communicate with students throughout the admissions funnel. And the second thing we have done in the admissions office is hired a very talented new director of admissions who comes to us with lots of experience from the private sector, and he is also an expert on Slate. With regard to new programs, we are this spring launching 4 new online graduate programs, master's programs, and we're using BISC as our online program manager to do this. And BISC is currently working with our faculty to develop these very strong online courses. And we anticipate that that will result in increased graduate enrollment starting this spring. Projected increased revenues are about $250,000 for the remainder of this fiscal year, $1.5 million for fiscal 25, and $2.7 million for fiscal 26. We are also launching a new Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, and we will have that up and running this coming fall. And we anticipate that each cohort that we bring in each fall will include 60 students. That's the maximum number that we can take. But there's so much demand for nursing, we have no doubt that we will make those numbers. Therefore, we're anticipating $1.4 million in new revenue for fiscal 25 and $2.8 million in new revenue for fiscal 26. We're also increasing out-of-state recruiting, with the anticipation of bringing in at least 20 new out-of-state students for the fall, and that will bring in at least $33,000 in new revenue for those students.
Thank you. And now let's focus on retention. As president for many years at the university meeting, I would say if we could only reach an 80% retention rate, I'd be so happy I'd buy a bottle of Dom Perignon. Well, guess what? We reached 83% in 23, and we thought, well, that's great, but is it an anomaly? And so people cautioned me not to brag too much about that. And now in 24, we look at the data, and the data tells us that it's 84%. So it's not an anomaly. That's the retention rate at Eastern. Why is that? It's three areas that I want to highlight for the regions. First is our Academic Success Center. These are a list of the services that are provided there, but the most important one is number one, the wraparound services. That means that in one location, students can go there and get all of these services that are listed with real people, you know, to talk to and to engage with them and to help them through the crises that they are facing. The second is the dual advisement program. We have found that many faculty members are excellent advisors and that it's uneven at times. And so we have professional advisors that work with our students even when they have a faculty advisor assigned. And then the third is our work on counseling and psychological services. We have 9 full-time people there, 3 part-timers with a nurse that prescribes medication, and JED, which is the national organization that looks at psychological services at universities and colleges across the country, did an audit for us and told us that we have the appropriate number of full-time people and part-time people for the number of students that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the regents? Regent McCarthy.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations on your continuing success with these wonderful numbers that you report. And I want to particularly point out what appears to be the great impact of this centralized academic service center. That's really a wonderful accomplishment. And not to be picky, but I want to focus on the, let's say, 15% that you don't retain, because you want to get that retention rate up to higher than 84, 85%. And I was wondering if you have had any expanded outreach to those students who don't continue. I'm particularly interested in the ones who continue from the first year to the second year, but somehow following the second year drop off the treadmill, if you will.
Right.
And you know, that's the some college, no degree population, which in the current demography of the state is going to become increasingly important. And I just wonder what your thoughts are on how you might reach out to this some college, no degree population and encourage them to come back, and what needs they might have to be encouraged by.
Yeah, well, our greatest competitor is UConn. They transfer to UConn at the end of that first year. So it's not that they don't have a degree, they have a UConn degree. I'd like to rescind that degree and get them back here.
Good point.
But yes, Bill.
And the data that we're looking at now with these new retention rates show that the students who don't transfer and stop out, typically it's not because they aren't academically prepared. They're doing quite well. The problem is they run out of money. And so they need more financial aid to be able to afford to be at Eastern. Many of them, particularly after the first year, will transfer to a community college. And then we do often see them come back.
Yeah, and we give them the retroactive, degree from the community college.
Right.
Okay. Regent James.
Yes, I applaud your, particularly your wraparound services efforts and the dual advisory, as well as the partnership with CAPS that will allow students to have access around the clock to services that they need. I have a question regarding your enrollment strategies, many of which I applaud. But what is your, is there focus too on increasing the transfer opportunities, particularly in the nursing program? We have some excellent programs in our own system through the Connecticut State system, and wondering if you have some thoughts about improving, streamlining the transfer process to enable our community college students more access to your nursing program.
I think you're right to point that out. I mean, it is uneven at Eastern, our transfer numbers right now. We used to have great transfer numbers. Because of where we're located, it's very hard for a student who's not traditional, a student, to drive out to Eastern and be a part of our community. So we have to increase our efforts across the state. We recruit from every town in Connecticut except 2 that we don't have students from. And so we need to intensify our efforts with Manchester Community College, Quinebaug Community College, and Three Rivers Community College.
And so prior to COVID, we were starting a process where we would have the faculty, we would host the faculty from the community, our feeder community colleges on our campus to have a social with our faculty so that we could talk about, they could talk to each other about obstacles that the community college students were facing when they transferred and obstacles that our faculty saw students being less prepared for. We're going to we're restarting those this year. The other major changes, we're adopting a new general education program in the fall. We call it our liberal arts core. And unlike our previous Gen Ed liberal arts core, which was not designed with transfer students in mind, the new LAC, the new liberal arts core, was designed with transfer students in mind to make it a much easier and more seamless transfer process for them from any of the the community college.
We have, the faculty's been wonderful on this point. We have eliminated the obstacles in the LAC for a transfer student. And I think that's going to make us much more attractive in the marketplace.
Regent Yang?
Hi, thank you. So my question is regarding the new programs that I saw that are being developed with BISC. Did you explore growing those programs within our own system at Charter Oak first?
We did not. We had started we put out an RFP long before anyone was talking about Charter Oak. And we basically, with the budget challenges we're facing, we needed to move quickly. And it wasn't clear how quickly the Charter Oak piece would move.
Okay. So do you intend now that that is more defined to then check in to understand where that is? Or, I mean, I'm not sure exactly where on the process is, and we can follow up on this later, but I put it this way, I think we definitely should be, you definitely should be at least speaking with them to understand where they would stand and how a program would be and where it would cost.
And I think the chancellor has done and continues to do with his staff significant work on this point. And it's the collective bargaining agreement that presents challenges. And the faculty understand that those challenges are important to their owning their and developing their own courses, and also sharing revenue.
Regent Santiago?
I think something for further discussion. Sorry, one more thing. Just did we talk about?
Can we, I'm sorry, can we move on to give Regent Santiago a chance and then come back?
Yeah, sorry, I'll talk offline.
Regent Santiago?
Thank you. I just was curious again, thinking about enrollment and retention, you know, what are the two sort of very specific, most important items that Eastern has to get done to reach our enrollment and retention goals next year?
We have to get the graduate students in through this collaboration with BISC, and we have to have a successful nursing program that brings in the 60 students that the provost identified.
Thank you. Regent Yang, quickly, if you have one further question.
That was Regent Santiago basically asked my question, so thank you.
Okay, so seeing no further questions on, we will move forward. The next in our tour is Central. President Toro and Provost Costellos.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you some of the developments at Central in the area of recruitment and student success. Let me start by saying that for us, the efforts that we are undertaking are a collective goal. And what I mean by this is the faculty, staff, and student workers are part of what we do at Central for enrollment, retention, and student success. Let me just mention 3 specific developments that point to the fact that what we have been doing at Central put us as a model, not only in Connecticut, but beyond. The American Association of State Colleges and Universities has identified 2 our programs as promising practices that are being shared nationwide. These 2 programs are the CCS, Youth Travelers Edge program, which include a career development component, and a student Success Central, which is a peer coaching program for students. In addition to that, just recently, Central was moved to the first gen forward phase of the First Scholars Network for our work with first generation students. So those are indications that our programs are working. Now the provost will talk to you about basically the 3 areas of focus we have: enrollment, retention, and housing occupancy.
Great, thank you all. So the first aspect with regard to recruitment, I think that you can see from here that we have a shared responsibility across our campus and have been changing the culture of all being part of the process for recruitment. As you can see that this year we had a 2.6 increase on headcount, but we also had a 3.8% increase in FTE as well. With respect to retention, this year we increased 2.1%, not where we wanted our goal to be. We want our goal to at least to be 81.5%, but we were happy to at least increase 2.1%. But what we also want to highlight that's not shown here is that our second to our third year, which typically we have seen a drop off, increased by 6.8% retention this past year as well. So we are confident that some of the things that we've been putting in place have been working and can see some of the results from here. With respect to our third element that we're focusing on is the housing occupancy. And as you can see here, we have been increasing since COVID, but also even pre-COVID levels too. And we had a goal of 2,100 in the housing, and we exceeded that goal for this year, largely, I think, due to our recruitment efforts, but also we've changed our packaging for scholarships for housing, not just to be 1 year, but for the 4 years. So we are retaining the students also in housing at a higher rate too. We also are in our second year of living learning communities as well, that also attributes to some of this growth that you see here too. One other piece that I wanted to mention with our enrollment that you can see with respect to recruitment, we set a goal of 1,350 this fall 2023, and we exceeded that goal. Again, just illustrating that all of our efforts are working towards in increasing that, and also increasing summer melt, or I should say decreasing summer melt and increasing and maintaining that first year class as well.
If I may, you've reached the yellow alert 1 minute warning. So if you'd like to summarize or conclude with a concluding statement, that would be helpful.
Okay. As I mentioned, the responsibility of recruitment and retention at Central is a shared responsibility with faculty, staff, and students. And we should mention that in terms of recruitment, we have expanded the geographical area we are reaching at. And in addition to that, in terms of retention, we have what we call the blanket of support that includes over 40 programs to support not only academic needs, but mental, emotional needs of our students. Finally, it's important for us to mention our multifaceted approach to marketing and communication. We just launched a new branding campaign, which is called We Are Central. So it's not only about what we do internally, but also about how we communicate what we are doing and how we are helping our students.
Thank you very much. Questions from the regents? Regent McCarthy?
Yeah, I was going to wait to see if anybody else had one, so I don't ask too many. First of all, congratulations. You've accomplished quite a lot. I appreciated the heavy reliance on numbers, particularly in your presentation, and recent time trends. That's very helpful. This is in the category not of a question, but in a category of I'd love to hear more. And that's about the living and learning communities, which I'm somewhat familiar with, and they can be enormously helpful in encouraging retention. And I just want to ask if you're also either doing or thinking about learning communities for non-residential students as well, because they can often have the same positive effect on retention. But congratulations, thank you.
that's a great question, and that's something that we've been doing, and we've actually been starting with an extension of our living learning communities to learning communities. So some of the programming that we do, for example, with our nursing LLC, we also expand out to create a learning community as well. So that's where we're starting, but we're also been partnering a lot more with our student affairs, and we have some proposals in the works to keep expanding that out.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Regent Santiago?
Yeah, I'd like to just at first echo Regent McCarthy's comments around the crispness of the numbers, the presentation, and the prepared data. Very easy to understand, very clear, very appreciated, and probably one of the predicates to success. So I'll just follow up with asking the specific question to President Toro and her team, which is, what are your top 2 must-hit, must-do objectives to make the most impact on recruitment and retention this coming year?
Okay, we have a goal of 2% increase in enrollment for next year. For us to be able to accomplish that, we need to continue to bring to campus the students, the prospective students, in such a way that we can close the deal with the students. If we reach 10,000 applications, is our goal for this year, we are sure we will be able to increase our enrollment and reach our enrollment goal for next year.
Regent Yang?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Really, my only question is, I know we've discussed previously that you are pursuing Hispanic campus or Hispanic university institution status. Could you elaborate more on that and how that might impact this?
Yes, when I arrived here 6 years ago, our Hispanic student population was 14%. Now it's close to 19%. Our goal is to reach 25% of our student body identified as Hispanic. And that's why we're focusing on specific geographical areas where the Hispanic population is big. These areas include areas in New York, New Jersey, even Florida and Texas, in addition to the areas in Connecticut, including Waterbury, New Britain, Hartford, and Waterbury, Hartford, and Bridgeport, where the percentage of Hispanic students are higher. Not only that, if you look at the fastest growing student population, college age student population, Hispanic is at the top. So that's why we are focusing on that. We want to reach Hispanic serving institution status because that will allow us access to federal funding that we don't have access to now. And that funding is for building infrastructure that will help not only the Hispanic students, but all our students, and will give us more opportunity to retain more students.
Thank you. I just wanted to welcome Regent Porth and Professor Susenko, our ex officio members to the meeting who arrived late. So welcome to the meeting. Further questions regarding Central's presentation?
I have one, Ira.
Okay, thank you. Regent James?
Yes, I wanted to know a little bit more about the First Gen Academy and what kind of reception you're getting, not only from the staff and faculty, but also whether you are reaching out not only to the students, but to their families as well.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So the first gen academies, we had one last spring and we are currently in one right now this fall. And we have another one ready to go for the spring. And to give you a sense of the reception, we have a waiting list for people who want to sign up to be part of that, each of the cohorts. So we're excited about that. And actually just yesterday, we had our first gen celebration. We expanded it out to a whole week, but just specifically yesterday was the first gen day, and we had a panel, and we had some current students, former students, as well as some staff, and hearing the students and the level of appreciation for the support that we've been providing, I think answers, addresses some of your question too, but we've also been reaching out to the families. We've also been doing that during the recruitment process as well as the onboarding process, and offering additional programming for them in English as well as Spanish. And so we've had some great reception from that has been able to bring the families on board from the start as well.
Thank you. Further questions? If not, we'll continue our journey west to Western Connecticut.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Go
ahead.
All right. Thank you for being here and being our guides and consuls and allies. I'll just jump into our topic of the day, which is our retention and recruitment strategies. Challenges that Western has faced over the last 8 years or so in enrollments are a public knowledge. So as soon as I came in, my team and I figured out a more systemic way of turning the tide around, whether it's enrollment or financials. So we identified 5 specific, I'll call it 5 Ps. Let's talk in terms of those 5 Ps. One is the program. So we are introducing some innovative new programs to be attractive to prospective students, building upon liberal arts and fine arts tradition that we have, and then really very intensely focusing on emerging technology fields of artificial intelligence and machine learning and whatnot. My conversations with and quantum computing, IBM is right in my next door. My conversations with them have really led to me believing that we have a community support here to make Western Connecticut a kind of a technology corridor based upon emerging technologies. Talking about enrollment increase, the second P would be the place. Am I going to be expanding forward to other regions within CT New York and New Jersey? My ambition is with my team's counseling, we figured out that we are going to go with international recruitment very significantly. And I must say thank you to Katuria Rai and the Board of Regents and Chancellor Cheng for taking this NAVI rates expansion to potential international students. That's going to be a big help. I have some experience at Southern expanding international outreach efforts, so that's where we will be headed. The third one is the price. That's the P third. And that is given we are dealing now with scholarships and fundraising. Foundation just released a significant $300,000 amount for scholarships. And we also used 1.2 million or so last year's operating budget focusing towards or reallocating towards financial aid. That'll make our programs more competitive. We're also doing strategic realignment when it comes to employment on campus. Finally, we are focusing on the people. We talk about transfer students, adult learners, stop-outs, and dual enrollments and community college transfer, as we said. But dual enrollment in high schools, catching them young is a strategy. Final P would be the process. We're doing a lot more significant rebranding of our institution, as well as increasing our PR and marketing efforts with the new mascot and whatnot, highlighting the interdisciplinary nature and technology-infused education provider for this region. That's a major strategy that we are adopting. So I'm going to go forward and give next for the details to my colleague, Mr. Alexander, our provost, and Jay is with us. He's our VP for enrollment and student affairs.
So I just want to get started with our the high point for us this year, which is that the changes in our recruitment strategies were really working. Although we are still struggling with some of the retention efforts, which I'll talk about, I want to point out that our more precise financial aid awards and our more coordinated outreach yielded a first-year class improvement of 13% higher than last year. And we grew our funnel, and we are planning to grow it by another 4% in the next fall. We are also planning to grow our graduate enrollment over the next year and continue thereafter by 1%. This is focused on two approaches. One is international students, which is going to focus on some STEM development in our graduate programs, as well as making them intentionally full-time. And also regional developments and regional students in our 4+1 pathways. And we're creating some directed options in partnership with Charter Oak that we're very excited about. We are also promoting our brand. We have a great new director of our marketing and communications, and our Wolf is fully launched. We've increased the billboards, bus wraps, malls. We're using the digital tools and geofencing to make sure the right students get the right messages at the right time. And we just launched an ad on NBC and Telemundo as part of our strategy to becoming an HSI. By the way, we have crossed the threshold in terms of enrollment, and we are currently applying for that status. We're also focusing on transfer by being good partners with our community colleges. We're also looking at our financial aid model to look at some transfer scholarships, and we're trying to leverage more fully the consortium agreements and reverse transfer policies. We're hoping to grow in this area by another 5% next year. The programs that you heard a lot about last year are launched, and these are focused on equity, opportunity, and connections to career advancement. They're up and running. We will be launching a post-baccalaureate.
Provost Alexander, if I may, you're running at the end of your time. Would you just like to summarize, or Dr. Saint, would you like to summarize?
I'm happy to do so. I just want to make sure that you are aware that we have launched the university advising plan this year, much like the good work done at Eastern. We are now having professional advisors to work on our retention rate, which we anticipate will both recover and improve by 1% per year after that recovery next fall. So we are taking those good ideas forward, centralizing the strategies of wraparound services, centralizing our tutorial supports and all of that, and focusing on student engagement in both the residential and non-residential students. So the work started last year is continuing, and we are underway in our improvement plans.
Thank you very much. Questions? Regent Porth. We're not hearing you.
Thanks, Ira. Thank you for the presentation too. Your projections for enrollment increases, are they derived in some particular way? To be honest, they seem optimistic to me, and I'll follow up by saying, can all of us look at the enrollment changes as they develop and focus on the ones that are producing the best results in a way that we can all be confident that enrollment and retention is improving as we go along?
So I'll start, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague Jay Murray about the enrollment projections, but I want to make sure that you know what we're saying specifically. So the projection is for an increase in first-year students, not the overall enrollment number. So we increased our first-year students this year by 13%, and we want to stay the course with that by growing our funnel. And our use of OTHOT was particularly effective in that this year. And before I have Jay explain what OTHOT is and how it's working for us, I also want to mention that the graduate enrollment projections are modest. We have actually converted programs to online strategies. We have a couple of partnerships coming with some school districts. So we think we can easily grow them by 1% and higher in the years thereafter. Jay, do you want to explain OTHOT to them?
Yeah, so we worked with a partner, brought on a new partner last year to build more of a strategic enrollment model, to be much more enrollment data informed, but also to give us actionable steps throughout the process. The big needle mover for us this past year was, as Dr. Singh had mentioned previously, additional allocation of institutional aid to move that needle. So not only did the funnel grow, we grew about 6% in our first-year applications last year. It enabled us to leverage the data from the model to grow first-year actual enrollments by about 13%. So that was quite helpful. Also with our retention model, with the changes we made for wraparound services for our professional advising center, I'm happy to report we're already at 4% increase year over year with students, first year students moving from fall to spring.
So it's a real, it's a recruitment strategy, but it's also a retention strategy. And we went to professional advisors for all first year students this year. They have faculty mentors still, but this is meant to make sure they get the calls. And I want to tell you that even over the summer, as we started to launch that, the ability to get students who sometimes struggle with getting a full-time schedule, we got many more up to that full-time status because they got the direct outreach because people are dedicated to that process. We anticipate with the new Dean of Student Engagement that we will see even more strengthening of that retention strategies, because that's a backup or a reinforcement of messaging. The first year programs align with the advising strategy. So we believe that we're going to see growth in the retention numbers, which will boost us as well.
Yeah, we also joined up, so that first year with the advisement with Tutoring Resource Center. So there's this kind of really consistent transition from incoming student to declared student to move on to their selected major of study.
Thank you for that answer, Regent McCarthy.
Yes, thank you. Clearly, you're paying a great deal of attention to numbers, as you should, and you've got some serious challenges to overcome. What I'd ask from the standpoint of trustees is that first of all, I'd like to know when you expect to retain the enrollments that you've lost in recent years. Do you have a target date for returning to enrollment from whatever year you think is the best to pick, probably 2019 or 2018? And then as somebody just asked, to see the regular reports on progress towards that. I note that you presented a lot of detail in your report, and that's very helpful. But I want to make sure we have the detail, but also the overall success level, and overall how long you think it might take to come to a full recovery based on increased enrollment and retention.
So I think our return to, let's call those pre-COVID numbers, that fall 2019, we still have a ways to go, probably 2 to 3 years to recapture those numbers. We were enrolling consistently large first year classes and had stabilized enrollment 2016 through 2019. Post-COVID, we've been enrolling smaller classes, so graduating big classes, bringing in smaller classes until this year. This was our first positive increase. So we think on the trajectory, this year it was plus 90 students on the first year cycle. Maintaining that and expanding that each and every year will get us incrementally back to that level. But I think it's still a few years out.
But I also want to add that I anticipate that the retention rate for next fall will be significantly improved. And this is because we had already been improving it. We hadn't gotten to the full professional advisor until now, but we had improved it pre-COVID. It dipped during COVID. It came back last year. This year it was struggling again, and I think that had to do with what went on this campus last year. But the message students have now is incredibly positive. The support they're getting now is incredibly positive, and I would say that I would anticipate that that will help. So even though the first year students is going to be this slow incremental growth, I think you're going to get a good bump from the retention for next fall.
I have a question about transfers from New York State. If you look at the geography, the SUNY campuses that are in, quote, in the neighborhood are Purchase, which is a performing arts emphasis school, and much further up the road, New Paltz. So there seems to be a reasonable target transfer population from New York State. And I'm wondering if you have any collaborative agreements, for example, with Westchester Community or any of the community colleges in New York State, which are within your geographic area.
Yes, we do. We have been, since we launched the New York, New Jersey pilot program back in 2017, we have been bullish with both not only Westchester Community College, but particularly with Dutchess, because Dutchess has a satellite campus that's closest to us that actually services the Putnam County students. Those two, in a combination with Orange County Community Colleges, are actually all three in our top 10 transfer feeder schools. So we've had collaborative agreements with them to bring students in, both as commuting transfers and as full-time residential students.
We have time for one more quick question from Regent Santiago.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Just want to understand, what are the top 2 must-do, can't-miss priorities to make our targets for next year?
I'll answer that. Must-do top 2 are making our program portfolio rich enough for the next generation to be attracted to us, and that includes very heavy tech focus, and not technology in terms of traditional engineering, etc., but in terms of emerging fields of artificial intelligence, Industry 5.0 driven robotics, including software, computer science, cyber security. We have already got the foundational things, but my faculty is very much responding quickly to bringing the programs into the process of governance approval from the faculty. And I'm hoping that by fall 24, we will have at least 2 master's degree programs related to artificial intelligence and robotics and machine learning. We will be knocking at the doors of BORs for approvals. And second important thing that we are going to already focus on, given the NAVI rates approval, international. So those 2 are really intertwined because graduate and international go together. Most of the international students target graduate. Combine that with our competitive tuition that we just got, with some scholarship money that we are raising with fundraising. My foundation, as mentioned earlier, has supported international efforts with us. So those 2 are really expected to. The third thing that I would want to is, we are in Danbury, which is the most, second most, if not the most diverse city. Between 2010 and 2020, we had 150% increase in Hispanic population in Danbury area. So that's where I am looking at this, not just from the enrollment increasing perspective with its financial impact, but also as our mission is community service and community impact. So 2.5, third very important thing would be for me to look at all the efforts that combine these 3, giving the diverse population quite a bit of which is Pell Grants eligible from Danbury High School. Combining those 3 things together, I think will move the needle forward.
Dr. Singh, thank you very much, and thank you to the Western community. We're moving on to CT State. Dr. Maduko?
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Regents, Chancellor Chang, fellow institutional presidents, Professor Sasanker, and esteemed colleagues. We're pleased to see you. Happy to provide an overview of our recruitment and retention strategies. As you know, CT State is 3 months and 9 days old. And in our infancy, we are currently stabilizing our operations as a new college, while also intensifying our efforts through a shared governance process. We recognize the changes in demographics, both in high schools and for higher ed and CT. So we are mindful of being conservative in our enrollment projections. We're projecting a 2% decline in enrollment for fall of 24, sure that we're being responsible with our budgeting. However, we continue to see increases in continuing and readmitted students. So we feel like those areas, I think last academic year, we saw a double-digit increase in readmitted students. So there are definitely some opportunities, despite the enrollment landscape, that we can absolutely maximize. As Connecticut's largest institution of higher education and New England's largest community college, we recognize the need to maximize our footprint and scale for the state's workforce. Today, I'm joined by Provost Dr. Levy Brown and our Acting Vice President of Enrollment Management, Dr. Tamika Davis, and we'll go into details of our presentation. So Provost Brown.
All right, good morning, esteemed colleagues and regents. Really quickly, Kayla, could we advance to slide 5? We have a number of strategies that we want to share with you today. All of them are incredibly important, but one of the areas that we are poised for growth in is our healthcare areas. And this is a new strategy that we wanted to really uplift today and share. CT State is excited about the opportunity to provide a new practical nursing program, which would be the first one for our campuses and the CT State community. We are slated to launch for fall of 2024, pending official approval through shared governance. Our goal is to really start off at Quinebaug Valley, and then we would quickly expand our PN options for students across the state to meet the growing healthcare needs that exist in Connecticut and in the greater New England region. I won't cover all the numbers. You can see them outlined there, but we are projecting growth opportunities, and ultimately we're looking to serve a number of students and reach the 1,000 mark plus in student headcount within our nursing programs collectively as we move forward. The other thing I wanted to note right before we move ahead is we would expand PN to 5 additional campuses after the Quinebaug Valley, which would really spark additional growth. And I just want to be clear on that. Next slide, please. Opportunity that we have at CT State, we talk about, and when we look at enrollment opportunities, we look at a number of buckets, so to speak. We have our credit-bearing opportunities, but we also have non-credit-bearing opportunities as well as an institution. And so our Career Connect option, which focuses on non-credit, we have a variety of opportunities with our business and industry partners to put more students in the workplace. Career Connect for us focuses on advanced manufacturing, IT, and healthcare. We definitely know, as it has been mentioned, that healthcare is a growing area, but we're committed to advanced manufacturing. We're also committed to the growth opportunities in IT. We're partnering with OWS and other partners. We understand that there is approximately 12,000 students that we will be working with to get through this pipeline with Career Connect. And we're partnering with our enrollment management team, my esteemed colleague, Dr. Davis, and others to make sure that we reduce any type of enrollment barriers related to the technology for our students that will be coming through our Career Connect programs. And so I wanted to lift that up. We also are launching 2 new councils, internal councils, the Advanced Manufacturing Council for CT State, which will really help us to elevate the work of advanced manufacturing from a higher education perspective, community college lens, as well as we are launching a new workforce development council. Both of those councils will be launched officially and have their first meetings within the next 4 weeks. So we're excited about the growth opportunities that will emerge from the brilliant minds of faculty, staff, campus CEOs, and other leaders associated with CT State. Dr. Davis?
All right. I just want to add that you have 1 minute remaining.
All right, thank you so much. I will move quickly through this. So just on slide 7, it outlines a partnership that we are developing with the Connecticut Technical High Schools, where we are going to provide access to over 12,000 students within Connecticut. Currently, our enrollment from CTech high schools with new students was 505 students that we enrolled this past semester. So with this partnership, there is a huge opportunity to, again, expand that access to those students in particular. So over the course of the next 3 years, we are looking at expanding enrollment by 10% with the CTech high schools, as well as increasing our dual enrollment numbers with those students as well. If you could move to the next slide.
No, we don't. I'm sorry. Dr. Meduco, do you want to have any last second summary?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to be clear, 1 out of 4 undergraduate students in the state of Connecticut is a CT State student. We are proud of our footprint. We're proud of our immense size, but we know that affordability and access is a big deal. We are the most affordable college in the state of Connecticut, and that's before the application of PACT. So there's a key goal to get the awareness about not only our 17 locations of instruction, but our immense affordability for the for the residents of the great state of Connecticut. We feel like leveraging those two things will help us stabilize our enrollment. And we feel that the enrollment cliff of 2025, we feel that come fall of 2026, we'll begin to see an uptick and an increase in enrollment across the state.
Thank you very much. Questions? Can we clear the screen for? Thank you. Questions from the regents? Regent Porth?
Thanks, Ira. I just want to say thank you for this presentation. I think these enrollment strategies are very concrete, and I think they're very promising, and they involve partnerships with other key institutions that can support us in these efforts. And in particular, I am really hopeful that Career Connect, that we can play a key role in Career Connect, and in the process demonstrate to people across the state, including our state leaders, the tremendous value that we can provide in that respect. And I've mentioned this before, but I'm also very excited about the dual enrollment expansion. And I know it's expensive and we still have to figure out how that gets paid for, but it represents a tremendous potential for increase in the pipeline that connects our high schools with our community colleges. And that's very exciting too. So I'd say the same thing in this respect. If we can, I'd love to keep track of how these strategies work and look for opportunities for us to have some more input as we go forward. Thank you, Ira.
Regent James?
Yes, I 100% concur with Regent Porth. I want to also say I recognize there is a tremendous change management effort in terms of Connecticut State University. And I really hope that we can partner not only with the legislature, but learn best practices from each other, because there are many community colleges within the system that have had tremendous success in terms of enrollment, financial support from donors, retention, and that we are creating a process to learn from each other, as well as increasing our efforts to partner with the business community to do this. I unfortunately have to excuse myself, so I won't be able to be present for the rest of the this presentation, but it's been incredibly informative.
Regent James, thank you. We're sorry you have to leave, but it is being recorded, so you will have the opportunity to see what happens after you have to leave. Thank you for coming. Regent Santiago?
Yes, I specifically have some questions around the business partnerships. I know that advanced manufacturing businesses have been partnering with various parts of CT State for several years. We've made significant investments at Quinnebog, at Three Rivers, at Snuntuck, and getting into advanced manufacturing. And then in today's presentation, it sort of seems like a reboot. And I'm trying to understand, have we not been getting the success from the partnerships that we've had in the past? What's going to be different in the future? It was a little bit discouraging to sort of hear a restart on something I would have thought would be much further along and successful by now.
Yeah. So Regent Santiago, if you could explain specifically what part of our presentation refers to a reboot or a reset of strategies or commitments.
Yeah, I think I understood that there was a community outreach council kind of getting started relative to advanced manufacturing that was spoken about.
Yes. So that's an internal mechanism, right? So the internal mechanism, these councils, both for advanced manufacturing and also workforce development, ensures that we're streamlining our efforts of communication or outreach across our 17 campuses of location in partnership with the external partners, Office of Workforce Strategy, the Governor's Workforce Council, the regional sector partners, the 5 workforce boards, and beyond. So those partnerships are maintained. We're not changing them. We're not rebooting them. We're ensuring internally we're streamlining what we need to do to meet the demand statewide.
And so what do you anticipate
Regent Santiago,
impact to enrollment?
Regent Santiago, can we continue and come back to you?
Yes.
Professor Sasanker?
Yeah. So we should always be in a position where we're trying to expand, but sometimes you're too broke to invest in the future. And, you know, next fiscal year appears to be that sort of year. So I wonder whether there's any conversation of the trade-offs that might be involved in expanding some or pushing in some of these directions, or whether there are some that might have to fall by the wayside if we don't receive further investment.
That's a great question, and I think that dovetails with Regent. Like we're being practical, you know. For the past month, I've been beginning conversations externally, but CT State is facing $250 million deficit, right? That's the largest institutional deficit in New England. So though we are committed to workforce development and healthcare and advanced manufacturing, we also have to balance our budget, right? That is the charge of us. So we're being mindful and more prudent as relates to being deliberate and intentional with our external partners, avoiding duplication, right? So trying to be all things to everyone, obviously it's costly. So that's why an internal workforce council ensures that, okay, Quinebaug Valley, you're gonna take this area of advanced manufacturing versus a different training perspective, maybe at as NUNSUP, to ensure that we're maximizing our footprint, but also being, you know, being stewards fiscally to this entire situation. And then last but not least, Professor Sasanker, we're really trying to focus on the really high demand areas that we're seeing in the state. And that's why we mentioned healthcare. If you remove construction and retail, healthcare provides the most job opportunities in the state of Connecticut. And also those jobs provide a family sustaining career in Connecticut. So that's why we're making a strategic, not shift, but really advancing the expansion in healthcare as well, in addition to manufacturing.
Regent Yang?
So yes, quickly, just to echo Regent Forth and his comments, workforce is obviously very important to all of us, and moving out of the backlog, I think is good to make that traction. Could you elaborate on the marketing efforts that will be required to hit some of these goals?
Yeah, with Dr. Davis.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've put significant investment in terms of the amount of outreach that we're doing with our students. In particular with our readmit students and our Step Out campaigns, we have a lot of communication plans that we've developed for those students. We've, you know, subdivided that population so that the outreach to them is more targeted. We've implemented a lot of new tools and technology that our staff are using broadly to engage our students, as well as partnering with other organizations to help support a lot more outreach with students. So, you know, a lot of the things that a lot of my colleagues have already mentioned in terms of marketing efforts, you know, billboards, radio, social media outlets. So we are trying to cover every avenue in terms of how we're connecting with our students, and in particular, really trying to brand CT State, right? And what that means to our students and our communities.
Thank you. We have the red alert for this component. So we will move on to Charter Oak, President Kolonowski.
Thank you.
Thank you to CT State group. It was very helpful presentation.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Ed Kolonowski from Charter Oak. My provost, Dr. Ferreira, is in Ireland, so I'm accompanied by my CFO, Mike Moriarty. So here we go. And I'll go to slide 2. So I'm managing my screen too, so pray for me. We were in a little different position than the rest of the system. Our enrollments did not decline during the pandemic. In fact, they were up slightly. And we're in a completely online institution. So when we decided how we would deal with this budget mitigation problem, we decided that we were going to stake almost all of our efforts on an enrollment increase. And we set a 9% increase for each of the next 3 years. That's the joke about pain. And we have the results now for our first semester of that growth, and we overachieved. We hit 10.2% on heads and 15.8% on credits. And those numbers are not first-time enrollments. That's the whole institution. So I can tell you that right now, Charter Oak is bigger than it's ever been before. Not that we're big, but our enrollment success is built on a success. So we're pretty pleased that we were able to achieve the first part of that 9% goal, and pretty excited about moving forward with it. Next, I want to talk about how we got some of that enrollment. We have a marketing lead generation that's predicated on having a search engine optimized website and using Google paid search campaigns for our programs and to talk about our value. These two strategies drive both paid and organic conversions. Again, a conversion is dependent on three funnels. We want students to do one of three things when they see one of our ads: fill out a short request for information, RSV to a virtual open house, which I'm going to say more about in a moment, or to have a human-powered live chat while they're on our site. So as a measure of success, we finished the month of September with 668 leads, and that was the largest month we'd ever had. Over the last few years, our lead generation just keeps going up, and our predictions for the future are on the slide. Next one. Okay. So what exactly does this virtual open house thing mean? We hit a sweet spot about a year ago where we started seeing students showing up for our virtual open houses in record numbers. So in 22-23, we hosted 18 of these open houses. We had 2,279 students register for these open houses. Of that number, 1,075 were not prospects, they were new leads. And 40% of those who registered applied, and 60% of those who applied deposited. So this is just our funnel got bigger at the top, and the percentages of success through that funnel have been very high. We are thrilled about that. Next, we made some changes to our admissions processes and practices to increase efficiencies and ensure personalized follow-up to each attendee. We used multiple touch points after the events for these prospects, and we're communicating them through whatever channel they ask: the phone, Zoom, email, and even text. So as a success, we've seen the following. Inquiry to application, our target is 32% or greater. Application to deposit, the target is 60% or greater. And deposit to matriculation, the target is 85% or better. So as we draw these students into us, we're having, I would say, pretty good success getting them to enroll. Now, here's something new that we're trying. We call this Career Invest. The other institutions market the high schools. That's where their resident populations are. We don't do that. They're not, our populations are not there. Our populations are adults. We think our populations are housed in the companies in Connecticut. So we're having conversations where we're trying to explain to companies that it would be advantageous to offer employee disbursement of tuition rather than reimbursement. The number we're offering is $52.50. That happens to be the income tax reimbursement rate for businesses for what they spend on training. And what we're saying to these companies is if you invest $52.50 in an employee, we'll let that employee take as much academic product from us as they choose. We're in the middle of negotiating our first corporate customer, but we're under an NDA, so I can't tell you any more than that. Stay tuned for more information. Next, our enrollment strategies. Well, we've seen a 13% increase in applications when comparing fiscal year 22 to 23, and that pace is speeding up. We had a 20% increase in applicants from the first quarter of this academic year, July to September. And so our targets are just more, and you can see them on the screen. We're in a pretty good place on this front. Now I'm going to shift to retention strategies. And the goal here is over the past 3 years, Charter Oak has had a 77% semester to semester retention and a 69% year to year retention, which are respectable numbers for a degree completion institution, adult serving, a second chance learner place like Charter Oak. Those numbers actually are slightly better than Southern New Hampshire. But we've got a bunch of initiatives to drive those numbers to 80% and 72% respectively. And these are, and I'm answering one of your questions, Regent Santiago. We are applying our technology to micromanage both our enrollees and our students. We're trying to intervene appropriately because the technology is telling us when to. So over the past 3 years, advisors have conducted proactive outreach to students who have not logged into their online course within 7 days. This process started in fall of 23. Over the past 3 years, administratively withdrawn rate for non-attendance has averaged 3.1%. So we've been doing these interventions to see if we can lower that number. This fall, we lowered it to 2.5%. Next, we're using a piece of software called Calendly. What this allows a student to do is to make an appointment with an advisor. They can have morning and evening hours. They can meet by phone or virtually. They can meet in person if they want to. We have a nice new space if they want to come by. And students also have the option to request time behind the normal work hours, and advisors are making themselves available for that. So we want 80% of the advisor caseload to meet with students using this tool. That's the goal we've set. Next, we call these automated quality control reports. We flag students who enroll in courses for which they already have credit, they're out of sequence, or they're over 15 credits for the semester. Advisors then address those issues immediately rather than after the students have made the mistake. Again, this is using technology to intervene in real time with students to either move them to the next step in the enrollment process or stop them from making a misstep in their academic program. So we're looking at the DFW rates. That's the below C minus, fail, and withdraw. Over the past 3 years, our DFW rate has been 11.7%. This is a pretty damn good number. And so our goal is to stay at that number or go a little lower. And finally, retention strategies. We're using postcard reminders with QRE links to remind students about payment deadlines and how to make payment. This, doesn't sound very sexy, but the reality is we lose 4.7% of our students after they've enrolled because they didn't pay. So we've done all that work to bring them through the funnel, to get them to advising, to put them in courses, and then they disappear because they didn't pay. So using these strategies, these postcards with QRT codes, we've lowered that 4.7 rate to 3.7, a 1% improvement on not losing students we've already onboarded. We are also in the process of generating, am I out of time?
I apologize.
You're
Yes,
just
you're out
about,
of time.
We're speeding up the financial aid process using this. I want to say one last thing and then I'm done. One of our biggest programs, which started in 2018, is direct matriculation from CT State. We have a community college tuition program that rewards CT State graduates that matriculated Charter Oak within 12 months by lowering their tuition to the same price that they were paying or would be paying at the community college. The program has proven to be very popular as the number of new tuition match students has grown from 111 in 21 to 223. We expect that to keep growing at about 10% a year for each of the next 3 years. And just for the record, 24% of our entire student base is those tuition match students. And I will now be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, President Klonowski.
And I'm going to close the screen for you, sir.
Thank you.
There you go.
Questions? Okay, let me start first. Would you talk about you mentioned the partnership with CT State, which are you in partnership with any of the other campuses of our system?
Yeah, as Missy Alexander mentioned, we've got a couple of projects we're doing with Western, and we've got a proposal in front of Southern. They have a master's degree in social work. We have a bachelor's degree in social work. We want our bachelor students to go to their master's online program, and so we're talking to them about how to create that pathway. So we've got two things going on with the other CSUs.
Okay. Regent Yang.
Yes, thank you for the tight presentation, which is heavy on details. So appreciate that. So my question to you is a simple one, which I've asked you already, but also in this forum, which is, can you go higher than 9% growth, given that the massive gap between us and Southern New Hampshire, who you mentioned?
Yeah, well, don't forget, they have 160,000 out-of-state students and $160 million marketing budget. So yeah,
right.
no,
they didn't always. One step at a time to get there.
26 years ago, when Charter Oak began working online, Southern New Hampshire was only a tiny bit bigger than this. So they've made all that progress over 26 years, and we have not. And we have not because we, Charter Oak and Connecticut, have not been aggressive about building online programs. That we just haven't. And I think to answer your question, if we got more aggressive, we could certainly grow the hell out of Charter Oak. Regent Santiago is going to ask me about the 2 or 3 most important things. One is clearly our virtual houses. The other are these technology interventions that enroll students and keep them enrolled. But the third missing piece for Charter Oak is we have 16 online degree programs. We need more of them. So that's how we get bigger, faster, and that's how we become a player regionally.
Right, and exactly, regionally and nationally, and not capturing students that are otherwise in our system is certainly a huge opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Regent Santiago, like some of your questions, I guess maybe.
I'm trying to get there ahead of you, sir.
Yeah, no, you did. And actually, it was, I'm just going to echo Regent Yang in saying what a tremendous presentation, data-driven, shows total command of what you guys are trying to do and how you get there. So really appreciate that. And I was going to ask Regent Yang's question, and I think you already answered it, but I'll give you a chance to add something to it, which is what gasoline can we give you to put on this fire to help to continue to grow? You mentioned more programs, getting more programs out there. What's holding you back from being able to get that done?
Just investment dollars. We have $8 million in our savings account. Building out a new program costs $250,000, $500,000. We don't have the money to build more than one or so a year. We're doing our darndest to do that, but we can only go at the rate our money lets us go. I will say this, the chancellor gave the system $330,000 and asked us to go out and re-enroll students with credits and no credential. We call this Complete CT. It's launching this month. We did this 4 or 5 years ago under a different name. This will benefit everyone, but it'll benefit Charter Oak more than most because that's our market. Our market is those students with credits and no diplomas. And that's something we want to do year after year after year. So we're doing this first run. If it's reasonably successful, we hope to continue to do it on the dollars that these students bring in, not on the generosity from our chancellor. So those are some areas where we should be market leaders in being able to bring back, there's 40 million of them across America. There's a whole bunch in Connecticut. We should be able to bring them back into our system, and Charter Oak is probably the best front door for that.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, System Provost Kathoria. Thank you very much, President Klinowski. It was an excellent, very helpful presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to present some of the summary of the recruitment and retention strategies that are being organized by the system office system-wide. Okay, so there are 4 initiatives that I'd like to talk about today: Complete CT, dual and concurrent enrollment, credit for prior learning, and the art transfer initiative. The first one is Complete CT. Complete CT, as President Klinowski just mentioned, is a system-wide initiative that allows us to target students with some college credit and no credential. These are students that have stopped attending college since the pandemic began. Nationally, we know there are 39 million such students who have some college but no credential. And in the state of Connecticut, we have over 370,000 adults who will fit in this category. Now, we know that these returning students, there's a 62% chance will not return to the institution that they initially started off with. This is why it is very important that this Complete CT be a system-wide initiative. So when a student drops out of one institution, there are other opportunities for them to come back to us within our system. As President Klinowski just mentioned, even though this is a CSTU initiative, Charter Oak is managing this initiative on behalf of the entire system. And currently, we are doing an outreach which starts later this month. This outreach is happening in multiple phases, and we are leveraging a neutral third-party vendor to do this outreach on behalf of the system. A measure of success for this is we are targeting an enrollment growth by adding 1,500 students. And this number is because Charter Oak in the past had done another initiative, similar initiative, and they were able to get about 1,500 students. That's why in phase 1, which is launching this month, our enrollment target is going to be 1,500. The next phase, we are targeting about 2,200 students to bring to our system. The next initiative is dual and concurrent enrollment. CSU has a rich history of offering a variety of dual and concurrent enrollment programs with partner high schools. These programs offer Connecticut high school students the opportunity to take college courses while enrolled in high school, either at their location or at one of our locations within the system. In phase 1 right now, we are doing an analysis project, which essentially is to create a comprehensive study where we are creating an inventory of all existing courses that are currently being offered by the system. What this allows us to do is basically determine redundancies and find opportunities for replication and scaling across the entire system. This project will also lead us to implementing uniform registration processes, which will allow us to gather data more easily, which essentially gives us more marketing capability. Also, because there is a wide range of pricing for dual and concurrent programming across the state, having a uniform pricing is going to be paramount to ensuring equitable offerings of our courses through this dual and concurrent enrollments initiative. Also, we'll be refining our communication strategy, finding additional opportunities for grant funding, and leverage this as a research opportunity for the system as well. Our measure of success right now in phase 1 is to develop a report that will be presented to the Chancellor, which will outline the various opportunities that we have and develop a strategic plan for next step. However, for the entire state, this will be an opportunity to basically leverage data to make more strategic decisions as we move forward, making this a very viable recruitment tactic. The next initiative is credit for prior learning. So many colleges and universities evaluate credit for college level knowledge and skills an individual has gained outside of the classroom for college credit. This evaluation is called credit for prior learning. Earlier this year, my office created a task force to create a credit for prior learning policy, which will leverage the experience that these students bring in to get a degree, to save time, save money, and accelerate their academic progress. On the screen, you'll see a list of tactics that are being used, how they can achieve college credit. This task force was created earlier this semester, and they have submitted a robust set of recommendations, which are currently on our institutions for socializing. Our measure of success for this is going to be to have this policy in place and fully implemented by fall 2026. Now, there are various elements to this policy, like developing a repository, identifying the course credits, coding the student information system, developing a communication plan. Because of such large number of elements to this policy, our measure of success is implementation by fall 2026, because all shared governance processes will need to be involved for successful implementation of this policy.
Provost Kathuria, you're coming to the end of your time. Could you summarize?
The last initiative I want to talk about is the transfer initiative, which is a high priority initiative for the entire system. This allows us to retain our students within our system. We established a transfer council, which worked over the last academic year, and they have generated a robust set of recommendations, which allow us to focus on vertical transfer, students going from our community colleges to our four-year institutions. The goal is to simplify the process, ensure that gen ed courses transfer as gen ed courses, and prevent loss of credit. And our measure of success here is going to be that by fall 2030, we increase our transfer rate by 7%. And this is in accordance to the our work with National Association of System Heads, and other systems around the country have adopted the similar metric. And that's why we are sticking to 7% by fall 2030. That's a quick update from my end.
Thank you, Provost Kathuria. I'll start with a question going back to the transfer question, which, as you know, is an issue that I've been very interested in. Our transfer rate from CT State to the universities is relatively low. So I'm wondering whether comparable when compared to many other systems. It seems to me that 2030, we should have a target and an increase that's greater than 7%, and perhaps a target time coming earlier than 2030. I mean, this is presumably a relatively easy way to recruit and retain students within the system. So your thoughts, Provost Kathuria, about this?
Absolutely. So our numbers currently are data that we had collected in 2016 shows us that about 15% of students come to CSU, four-year institutions from our community colleges. There is definitely room for improvement here. And we believe this simplified process that we will be putting in place once we get the shared governance process, which is ongoing right now, in place, completed, this should lead to a significant increase, because we are having only one application form for all our CSUs. We are going to be abolishing the $50 fee that we are currently charging to our students, and the simplified process should enhance this rate. So we are sticking to 7% because that's naturally what the National Association of System Heads and 7 additional systems are working towards, but we are very confident we'll be able to achieve that sooner than that.
perhaps we should change the target then.
Well, we are being very conservative in our approach here.
Other questions from other regions? Comments? Thank you, Provost Kathoria. Chancellor Chang.
Just quick, Regent Porth, did you have a
Oh,
question?
I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't. Regent Porth, were you?
Thanks. Super quick. I appreciate.
We have a little time, so you. I'm sorry. I just didn't see your hand.
Oh, no problem at all. I just want to say thank you. I am really happy to see the CSU system office play an integral part across the whole system in these efforts, and was really happy to see this this presentation. And I'm particularly hopeful about Complete Connect and Complete Connecticut, and of course the dual enrollment strategy that I mentioned before, and was happy to hear that the system office has already provided resources for Charter Oak to do more with regard to some of this kind of work. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you to the system leadership for playing for taking it on themselves to play a key role in this whole effort. Thanks.
Regent Porth.
Other, Madam Chair, Chair Ryan.
Yes, I'd just like to take a few minutes prior to listening to our Chancellor. But I'd like to just summarize in that some of these things, some of this stuck out in my mind, some opportunities for us. Greater connection and partnership and collaborations with the entire business community, and we can help you do that. I've heard the word foundation mentioned. Are we using our foundations within each of our regions to the best of our knowledge and to the best of the opportunities there? Are we reaching out enough to our technical schools? There are great opportunities for potential students there. I hear that we're doing quite a bit with the international. We must continue that. But the two areas that I see a great opportunity are much more emphasis on grants. There are a tremendous number of grants out there, as we saw recently with two of our institutions receiving big grants. And also what I do think our marketing and communication efforts have to be enhanced tremendously, because this is an unbelievable secret that seems to be existing. And when I mention this, or when I move around the state for different meetings, it's almost like, oh, I didn't know that. And that's a shame. We have to do more and more to let everybody know the resources that are valuable. Just looking on this screen and listening to the brilliance that has been displayed this morning, we have lots to do, but I thank you for what you've done so far, and I look forward to working with all of you so that we can enhance this incredible system.
Thank you. Regent McCarthy.
Yes, I just want to make a couple of comments as well. I was struck when I read the first version of the reports that the constituent groups submitted, and struck by the wealth of the full list of ideas and approaches that the four colleges, CT State, Charter Oak, and the central office were taking. If you put all of those together, that list of what things people are doing is an amazingly extensive, deep, and potentially successful list. So one of the things that occurred to me, and it occurred to me again when I looked at the revised versions, and again when I heard the presentations today, that there's an amazing amount of learning from each other that our institutions can participate in. So I would urge all of the institutions to read carefully through what their fellow institution teams have put forward as their enrollment and retention priorities, because I think they're filled with great ideas. The other thing that I want, and we heard a number of our trustees comment on some of the clear, crisp accounts that they received today, accounts that were replete with strong numbers. and some priorities. But I'd urge everybody to think along those lines and make tough decisions about priorities. And the one thing that I didn't hear as much as I thought I might, and that's looking ahead to the not immediate but not that distant future. There were a couple mentions of demographic cliffs. And if you, the Hartford Current in the last week has had several articles about likely continued declines in high school graduation rates in the state. And a couple of years out, there's another demographic cliff that's likely to affect the number of traditional school age students in the state. So I'd like us all to start thinking, as much as we have to do now, to start thinking ahead 2, 3, 5 years when some of the demographic challenges might be even more severe. But thank you. I thought the presentations today were crisp and clear, as others said. I thought they were went beyond the first draft of reports and even the second draft of reports. So I appreciate all the work that each of the units put into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chair Ryan?
Yes, I just want to add one thing to what Jim said. We are hosting conference next, well, a seminar next Friday morning, the 17th at 8 a.m., well, 7:30 beginning breakfast at the 5 Point Center for the Arts on University Drive in Torrington. The speaker is Ken Grounback, who is a renowned expert on demographic, he calls it the coming demographic storm. And the numbers that he's going to share with us will definitely have an impact on our entire system. So if any of you are interested in joining me or joining us, please let me know and I'll make sure you be our guest. But just please let me know and I'll make sure you're on the list and I'll give you the directions and that sort of thing, because it's precisely what we're talking about. And the scary thing is some of the things he's going to tell us. And that makes our job even harder. So let me know if you're available for next Friday, the 17th. Thank you.
Thank you. Chancellor Chang.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Thanks to all of our regents today. I've never been so quiet for so long in a formal meeting, so I'm a little bottled up right now, but I'm going to try to be really quick. I want to say thanks to all of our presidents, our provosts, our enrollment VPs, our student affairs VPs, all of the teams who have come together and helped to lead their institutions forward. They do that every day. It is incredibly hard work, and they deserve a lot of credit. And I deeply appreciate them and everything that they go through, because, you know, it is not easy. So I just want to reframe a couple things. I was, you know, very, very happy to hear certain things that are from the presentations. I have some other questions. I know that there's obviously more work to be done, but let's reframe this, right? The CSCU system, every single one of our institutions, every single one of our campuses, our mission, our vision, our strategy, if you will, is really simple. We need to serve as many students as possible in Connecticut, period. We need to do right by them. We have to give them great academic programs and great support, and then we have to help them graduate, and we have to help them find employment or other opportunities post-graduation. It's literally that simple. We should be going after, and I know we are, but we have to enhance and amplify and intensify all of these efforts. We have to go after K-12, adult and returning students, international students, out of state, our online market, our transfer market. All of it has to go to the next level. Credit, non-credit, it doesn't matter. We have to go next level every single step. Our academic programs, the APP process has begun to analyze them in a way they've never been analyzed before. We have to continue that. On top of all the other ways that the institutions review this APP process, whatever we call it, whatever the nomenclature or acronym is going to be, that analysis has to continue. We need great programs to attract students, and we need new paradigms to continue to support 21st century students. The students we support today are different from the ones that might have been here 10 years ago or 20 years ago. We have to adapt with them. And then we have to graduate them and get them jobs and get them on to the next step. We have to do more with workforce. We have to do more with those partnerships. And I know that the work is happening, but I don't mind saying in front of the board, I don't mind saying to all of our presidents, more. We need more. We need more productivity. We need more clarity. We just need to go to the next level on all of it. What I heard from the BOR today is details, specifics, timelines, and accountability. That is 100% right. I am more than happy to be held accountable to that, and I'm more than happy to work with our presidents to make sure that we are providing those details, we are giving those timelines, we are giving those specifics, because the words are meaningless if we don't produce. And that is our job. We have to produce. We have to show outcomes. We have to show that we are worthy of the state's investment for the long term. That tax levy dollar is hard earned. We have to do even more to make sure that there is no question that we deserve that type of support from the state. We have to have more innovation, folks, right? I know it's hard. Every day you all put in a great amount of work. We put in a great amount of work, but we need innovation. We came to this place. This is not a great place for a system or for institutions to be. We came to this place by doing a certain set of things. We cannot expect incredible transformative change by doing the same things. Even if we do those fundamental same things better, that's great. We will yield gains from that for sure. But to really get us onto the path for long-term sustainability and success, we're going to have to innovate. We're going to have to be bigger, better, stronger. We are absolutely going to run out of time. We are not waiting for the demographic cliff. The demographic cliff has hit us. Okay, we are in a kind of leveling off of that cliff right now, but in a few years, it's going to go down even further and more drastically. And so we need to really prepare for that. Our solutions are going to be as a system. If we combine our superpowers as institutions while maintaining the character, the identity, the nuance of the individual institutions and the campuses, we can do incredible, incredible things. But we need to do things more together. There's great work happening. I'm so deeply appreciative for it. I'm deeply appreciative of the engagement of our board. But we are going to provide even more detail and clarity, and we need to yield impact as soon as we can. And that's what we're all going to strive for. And the system is going to be here to help and work with our institutions and with our institutional leaders as we strive together to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. I thank everybody. I want to thank Ms. Davis for her work keeping this all on track. It's much appreciated. And thank everybody for their participation. As the Chancellor said, this was a very, I think, informative process, and it's pointed, as Chancellor summarized, in directions that we need to focus on. So thank everybody. I would accept from committee members, if anybody wants to make it, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor of adjourning? If the committee members.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.